James and Ben back here for OddsChecker US previewing Saturday's UFC Vegas 70 event. And let's get right into it here. We are going to start first on the main card. Mike Malott, Johan Lainesse, Canadian matchup, Canadian and Canadian violence here. And right now you see the odds makers, most books having Mike Malott as the favorite at minus 215 around there. The comeback on Johan Lainesse about plus 185, plus 175 around there. Who are you going with here?
Yeah, he's a pretty big favorite. But I do like Malott here. He's a very slick counter striker, and we saw that in his first fight against Mickey Gall. That was a pretty impressive knockout of Gall. He actually he kind of took a little bit of a shot in the chin. He returned with a really slick counter and just folded him. He's the more accurate striker, I'd say, and he's a little bit more busy on the feet. I really like him in this fight to actually get a knockout here. He is like around minus 220 on the money line. I would say if you're going to bet it, go with his knockout prop. His knockout prop is plus 175 I see right now. So I think that's the best play here. Two sharp strikers, but I think Malott is the better of the two. So.
And just so people know, when we do the show every week, Ben and I do not compare notes at all. We just sort of go right into it, and then we sort of, sort of tell our thoughts on each fight. Yeah. And I completely agree with you here. I think Mike Malott is a far better fighter. Now, these two have trained together before. They're actually friends. It's a bit of a weird fight. I don't know why they have like 5 Canadians on the whole roster, and they put 2 of them against each other. I guess they need to get a Canadian a win. I actually read some stat the other day that the last Canadian to win a fight in the UFC was like back in September. I think it was like Jillian Robertson. But anyways, yeah, I think Mike Malott wins this by knockout. I think the ceiling is higher. We've seen that he's a very well-rounded fighter just in general. And I think with Johan, it's been a bit of a disappointment, right? He had that loss in his debut in a fight that, he nearly finished to his credit, but ended up getting finished himself. And then the last fight, yeah, he got the win, but it wasn't really overly impressive. Whereas Malott, I mean, you can't get much of a better debut than knocking out Mickey Gall. Even prior to that, Malott's been looking great since he sort of took some time off, focused more on coaching, decided to come back and take MMA more seriously as a fighter. So yeah, I think we'll see more of that this Saturday. But I think if you like Malott here, you bet him by knockout. I might just stay away from this one. But yeah, I think regardless, I think Malott's going to win this fight. So that's where I'm going here. Okay, next fight is in the women's flyweight division. What an exciting fight this is. We've got Tatiana Suarez taking on Montana De La Rosa. And check this out, Ben. Tatiana Suarez, one of the biggest favorites. Actually, I think she is the biggest favorite on the card. Minus 750, around minus 800 on some books. The comeback on De La Rosa, plus 550. I think it's pretty obvious who you like here, but I got to ask anyways.
Yeah, I don't even think I have to say it. Throw her in a parlay. I mean,
Yeah.
Actually, with these odds, sometimes it is a little bit scary because it is MMA. At the end of the day, anyone can win. That is true. Any of these fighters can win any fight. Of course, the odds suggest that Suarez is the better fighter, and she is. I mean, I will say it's a little bit tough that she's coming in off such a long layoff. She had a few years off now from that injury, so that is a tough angle. But she looked dominant before she went out, and that win against Carla Esparza, obviously really impressive. And even her other wins, Nina Nunes, not a bad win. Alexa Grasso, pretty good win there. So like she looked really good before going out with that injury, and her stamina looks good. Like she just looks good all around. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. Like she's great on the ground. She's like pretty good on the feet. I don't see how she loses this fight, to be honest with you. Obviously the high price tag, like she's the better fighter here. Throw in a parlay maybe. Like I'm a little bit weary of whether like you take either decision or finish to knock the juice down, because it could go to a decision, to be honest with you. Like De La Rosa, she showed flashes of being somewhat durable and stuff. So it might actually go to the scorecards, but then she might finish it. So I'm actually iffy on whether to do that. I think moneyline in a parlay might be my favorite angle here, but yeah, I like Suarez.
Yeah, I like Suarez as well. I'm glad you brought up the layoff there because, yeah, June of 2019, I think was the last time she fought. She's had injuries throughout her entire career. This is nothing new. And it's not just one injury. It's been an accumulation of different injuries that has kept her out of the cage. We should mention that Suarez moving up to 125 for this fight. She's normally a strawweight, so that's a little bit difficult. But I'm going to push you over the edge here. I think the play is Suarez by decision for 2 reasons. Number one, Montana De La Rosa, I'm just looking at a record here. She has never been finished in the UFC. Now, granted, I don't think she's fought the caliber of opponent that Suarez is, but you have to go all the way back to, on the regional scene fighting Mackenzie Dern. I think Dern missed weight for that fight. That was back in 2016, the last time that she was finished. I think the big thing here is Suarez just needs to get the win, right? Like there's a lot on the line here. Before she left, people thought that she was going to potentially fight for the strawweight title. So, I mean, why go in there and mess around? I think the UFC is very generous in the matchmaking here. I think De La Rosa, to be quite honest, has been a bit of a disappointment since coming off the Ultimate Fighter. But yeah, I think Suarez decision, you can get it at like, some books have it as plus money. Some books have it as low as -110. I think that's the play here if you are going to bet this fight. I'm not generally a fan, and I think we've talked about this before, of doing parlays with fighters that are like -800 or something around there. So, I mean, if it's like -300, -400, fair enough. But I just don't think you're getting much value there. You might as well just, not bet the fight there. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't see how De La Rosa wins this fight unless she's been working on something that we've never seen, or maybe Suarez has lost a step since being injured, or who knows, or maybe the weight class move up is going to be too tough. I don't know, but I'm going to go Suarez by decision to get it done. I think she'll look great, but I don't know if she'll finish Montana. So I'm going to probably take a stab at that decision prop on Montana.
Yep.
Okay, let's keep it going. Heavyweight fight: Augusto Sakai, Don'Tale Mayes. The odds have this. Actually, it's interesting because I saw it earlier this week. It was almost even, but Sakai being the slight favorite here. Who are you liking here?
I think Sakai's going to close as a bit of a bigger favorite here. I loved it at even odds, but I like Sakai here. He is off 4 losses. That's always scary when you see a fighter on a 4-fight losing streak. Like, probably his UFC career is on the line. Like, you got to think he's coming into this fight thinking this is an absolute must win for him. And you look at his record, and I mean, the 4 losses are pretty tough. Alistair Overeem, Rosenstrike, Tai Tuivasa, Sergey Spivak. So, like, 4 tough fights there. He is getting a step down here. Like, Don'Tale Mayes is not those guys. Mayes, like, sure, he's decent. The odds indicate that this is a pretty close fight, which it might be, but outside of takedowns, I don't see Sakai losing this fight because we've kind of seen his issue be takedown defense. I don't think Mayes really can expose that because that is his path to victory. I think taking him down. So I don't think he's going to win on the feet with Sakai. So I think his path to victory is taking him down. Can he? I don't know. I don't want to bank on that. So I'm going to take Sakai for what I think are pretty good odds. I think he should be a little bit higher of odds. I get the 4-fight losing streak, but this is a step down for him. And this is a winnable fight for him to get back in the win column. He's a little bit more battle tested. So I like him to get this one.
I'm going the other way here, and this bit me in the butt a couple weeks ago with Parker Porter against Taffa, but I think this fight's fairly even. I think it's both guys extremely inconsistent. You're right, Sakai's fought the better opposition, but I also don't think he's been that impressive either over the last little bit. Like again, it's not like he's having these close fights and he's losing. He's getting dominated in a lot of these matchups here. And with Mayes, there was a lot of promise on him early on, but I mean, I think one of his early fights, I was just looking at it, there was against Cyril Gahn. So, like, some of the fights that he's having, I mean, I don't necessarily blame him for losing. The Hamdi fight was a loss, but Hamdi, I think he got popped for PEDs or something like that. But yeah, I just think with Mayes, I think there's still a little bit of upside there, whereas I don't see that with Sakai. So I'm going to pick Mayes, but I'm going to stay away from this fight. I'm not going to bet it. But yeah, to me, it's 2 inconsistent guys kind of going toe to toe, kind of like the Taffa and Parker Porter fight a few weeks ago. Okay, let's get to the co-main event. We've got Andre Muniz and Brendan Allen, and right now the odds makers have Muniz as a decent favorite here, -225. The comeback on Brendan Allen is about +190 around there. Who are you liking here, Ben?
This will probably be my favorite fight to watch. I'm not so excited to bet on it because I mean, this fight could really go like all over the place in terms of we should see some very high level like grappling. We should see some really high level reversals, like submission, roll, like all that kind of stuff. You're going to see good submission skills in this fight. You're going to see good Brazilian jiu-jitsu. These are 2 amazing Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighters. It's just going to be a good fight. I don't know that I necessarily want to bet it. If I was, I'm going to take Allen as an underdog just because I think if this fight does stay on the feet, like sometimes you see these guys who are so good on the ground and ends up actually being like a striking match. And if that happens, I think Allen's the better fighter on the feet. So Muniz, he's really good. Obviously, black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I believe. And like I said, if this fight goes to the ground, either one of these guys could submit the other guy. But they also have very good submission defense, so it might go to the scorecards on the same end. So it's like for me, it's just a really hard bet to fight to bet on, just with how many question marks there are for how this could go. It could go many ways, but I'll just take Allen for the odds just because I see it a little closer than the odds suggest. I do think Allen has passed to victory in this fight as well as Muniz. So I just think the odds should be a little closer. I'll take a stab on Allen as the underdog.
Yeah, I like Muniz a lot in this fight. And the reason is, we've seen Allen have a couple of these fights where if he gets bullied, and I'm not saying Muniz is going to do that in this fight in the stand-up, but we've seen a couple of fights where he's gotten bullied and he's folded. And this has happened against Chris Curtis. This happened against Sean Strickland. That's a bit concerning. The two guys, I mean, especially the Curtis fight, I think that was a winnable fight for Brendan Allen. He didn't end up doing it. And then you look at a lot of Brendan's wins, they're submission wins. I think Muniz is the better ground guy, personally.
Yeah.
We've got a guy in Muniz who, I think he not that long ago just submitted Jacare Souza, who I realized was on his way out in retirement, but to submit him is pretty good. So, and I think we saw in the last fight with Uriah Hall, who's a pretty good striker himself, the fact that he can hang on the feet a little bit. I just think Muniz has way more of a ceiling here than Brendan Allen does. I thought Brendan Allen, what was it, a couple fights ago, that fight with Malkoun, I don't think he should have won that fight. I thought that was a fight that could have gone the other way. I just haven't seen him get into that next gear, whereas I think with Muniz, I think he's the future of this division.
Yeah.
This is a tough one to bet, though, because, I think the odds, am I going to bet a minus 225? I mean, I might parlay that, to be honest, but yeah, I don't know, if he can finish Brendan or if he will, because I think if you finish Brendan, it's got to be by TKO, and I don't think he does that. I don't know if he submits him either. Brennan's a pretty good guy on the ground, like you mentioned. Maybe decision, but I could also see Brennan, like I said, we've seen fights where he's gotten finished. So I'm going to take Muniz. I'll probably put him in a parlay or two, but I'm a lot higher on Muniz than Allen is. Maybe Allen will show us something new in this fight, but from what we've seen, again, I think some of his wins, like even Sam Alvey, a bit inflated. Alvey not in the UFC anymore. Jocko's not in the UFC anymore. And those were submission wins, both of those fights. And he's not going to be able to do that against Muniz. So I'm going Muniz probably by decision to get it done over Brendan Allen.
Perhaps actually, from what we both said, actually one of my favorite bets, I think, is the over. Because of what you said, I think if Allen's going to lose, it would be by knockout. And I don't really see Muniz doing that. They both have good submission defense. So, I mean, I could see it going over. And actually, the under is juiced. The over 2.5 is plus 150. So I mean,
there's the play. This is why we get Ben. This is why we do the show every week, because there's stuff that both of us kind of uncover every now and then. I completely agree. That over should hit 100%. So that's the play. There we go. See, I was trying to think of something, and you came in the clutch, man. I like it. That's great. Okay, let's get to the main event. This is an interesting one. Nikita Krylov, Ryan Spann. Right now, you can see here, Krylov almost a 2-1 favorite around there. The comeback on Spann is plus 145-ish. Who are you liking here?
Unlike the last fight, I think we're going to see some violence in this fight. 4 of Spann's 38 fights, I believe. Yeah, 38 fights have gone to a decision. There should be some violence in this one. I know he's coming off a decision win against Volkan Ozdemir, but I mean, usually in his fights, there's some violence, and we get the same thing from Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann, he's a very slick striker, but he has actually really good submission skills. 12 wins by submission. They both have high finishing upsides, and they can both finish in a variety of ways. So, I mean, Krylov could honestly submit Spann too. We've seen Spann lose by submission. I know it doesn't happen often, but I mean, they both have really high finishing upsides, and this is a 5-round fight. So I know the under is probably juiced. I actually didn't look at the odds for it, but I'm assuming the under is 2.5, or actually the under is 1.5 for minus 127. So will we see a first round finish? I honestly think we might. I think we might see a first round finish here, just with how violent both these guys are.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Krylov is the better fighter. I think with Ryan Spann, he can obviously hit like a truck. Like we've seen time and time again, him get first round finishes. A little bit of context helps though. Last fight, Dominic Reyes has been knocked out a few times, coming off a huge layoff, knocks him out. Submitted Kutalaba, which Kutalaba is barely holding on to his job. The Anthony Smith fight was supposed to be a fight to kind of see if, Spann is like a contender. He completely got flatlined in that one, got submitted in the first round. Misha Serkinov not in the UFC, Sam Alvey not in the UFC. Devin Clark's actually probably his best win, and that was back in 2019. The Johnny Walker fight, he nearly won. It was a firefight. They were both sort of going toe-to-toe, and it just so happened that Walker hit him first and ended up putting him out here. The one thing with Krylov that you look at least recently, I know earlier in his career, he was sort of notorious for getting submitted. But if you look at it here, he's not losing a lot in the first round. Like these are a lot of wins. And you look at his losses. I mean, Paul Craig, he was winning that fight, got submitted. Ankalaev, who should probably be fighting for the title next. Glover Teixeira, former champion. Jan Blachowicz, former champion. I just think at level of opposition alone, Krylov should win this fight. He's more well-rounded. And I don't think Spann's going to be the guy to knock him out in the first round. I might look at that over actually, because I think Spann's got one way to win, and that's by knocking him out. He's not going to submit Krylov. He's not going to out wrestle him or anything like that. So that I maybe look at the over there. but I think Krylov wins this. And I think getting him at less than 2-1 odds, I think that's a good play here, honestly, just because I think Spann is, like I said, very one-dimensional. He's a good striker. That's it. Krylov, he's been around the block a few times. This is actually his second UFC stint. And then fighting some of the best opposition out there. So yeah, I'm going to go Krylov. I'm going to go like 3rd or 4th round submission. I think this might go a little bit longer. Might be like 2nd round, but yeah, I'm going to go Krylov submission to get it done over Ryan Spann. I think he gets it done. And just looking at the method of victory prop here, Krylov by submission, do we have it here, is like plus 200. So I might even take a stab at that. I think that's some good odds. So.
Well, I was actually going to say, after you said that, I do agree. I think if it gets outside the 1st round, I think Spann's going to be in a lot of trouble because Krylov, like we've seen Spann, because we've seen him either get finished or finished in the 1st round so much. We haven't really seen too much of his cardio. I think he's only been in one other 5-round fight in the UFC, and that was his fight against Anthony Smith,
which didn't even go past the round, right?
Go past the 1st round. So if we get into those late rounds, I was just going to say I actually like a late round finish for Krylov. Just because if it gets into those late rounds, I think he'll be the fresher fighter. He has the better cardio in my eyes. So if it gets late, I do like that submission line just because he lands a takedown and Spann's just gassed. I mean, he can submit him there. So I do like that, especially at those odds. Those are pretty good odds, plus 200.
Either way, we're going on the Krylov train there for sure. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. Hope you guys cash your bets on Saturday. We'll be back next week for the big UFC 285 pay-per-view. Enjoy the fights this weekend, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Good luck, everyone.